I definitely think there's something here that makes us a bit more artistic. We use a lot of French words to sound fancy. I've discovered here that I'm like, wow, the French do not say things this way and it doesn't mean things. There are a few moments where I'm like, wow, this is kind of more surreal than I expected.
Well, let's be a bit spicy here. Which country is better at make you feel like you belong?
Ooh.
Hi everyone. Today's guest is someone who is living proof that you can throw away the rule book and still win. So, well, Maëlie is definitely a jack of all trades, Chinese-American actress, and we'll get onto that, content creator, and Maëlie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, you're welcome. So actually, this was not on my question list, but I think it's good we start with that, because originally I started with saying that you were a comedian and an actress. And you corrected me saying, well, no, I'm not doing comedy. I'm not a comedian. Well, maybe you can share this part of the story. That was funny.
Yeah, that was funny. It was like because we're already talking about multicultural linguistics, and right off the bat, I'm like, I think we should change this from comedian. And then I remembered in French class that comedienne is also an actor or actress in French, but in English speaking, at least American English context, it means something completely different, which is a comedian like Dave Chappelle. So
exactly. Yeah, this is one of those faux amis. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Because a comédien in French is indeed an actor, and so not necessarily a humorist.
Yeah.
So that was funny, and actually caught me off guard because I'm like, well, she does some comedy. She's acting.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, so no, that was a great one.
Exactly.
But you've touched base on this as well. We were talking about multiple cultural things, and so you're a first generation Chinese immigrant. Well, I mean, your parents were, I think, and moved to the US.
Yes.
So you were born in the US. Yeah.
That's right.
So that was like they bought a one-way ticket, basically, and so, but your grandfather, I think, was like a coal miner in China. So that was quite the shift in like a few generations. So are these that background shaped you today?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's always a double-edged sword, of course. So yeah, it wasn't that long ago that my grandfather was a coal miner in China. There were 8 kids, only 5 of them survived. So it was a very, very tough time. I think when people think poverty in US sense, it's not the same as poverty as it was in rural China just, even 30, 40 years ago. So for me, for my parents to have worked so hard to get to the US and really make a life for themselves and achieve the American dream, in their own sense. I think for me, I always held on to this responsibility of, doing my best, having this self-motivation and this fire to, get to the best schools and the best jobs and, make them proud. But at the same time, there was always this creative side. And that's something that I think for a while, I kind of kept in the back of my head. I said, maybe once I establish myself in the corporate world, maybe I can do some sort of pivot and it's not as shocking to my family, who's, still culturally, they're still quite Chinese. Even though they're Chinese American, they've been in the US for about 30 plus years. I still think my family is very Chinese in some aspects. So yeah, that has been a shift, and even me telling them about my more creative side, I always pad it with, but I'm still at my corporate job.
Which state are you from in the US?
I'm from Massachusetts, but
nice.
I was born in California. So I oftentimes hear people think I'm from California, and no one ever says that in the U.S., so I wonder if my accent sometimes, the Valley girl, comes through. I'm not sure.
We should ask Anthony in the background.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, he says yes.
Oh, no. I'm like, is this a compliment? Oh, I'm sorry. Is this a compliment or not? I'm not sure, because then I think of the Kardashians and, they're very polarizing. So, but I'm surprised my accent would show through, because I left California at 8 months old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you didn't have time to pick up the accent.
I don't think I was speaking at 8 months old. And then I basically spent years 1 to 4 in Beijing with my grandparents. That's how much my parents were struggling at the time to need extra help. But by 4 years old, I came back and we were living in the Bronx. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've moved around a bunch of places for
So
sure.
weird that you actually ended up with the West Coast accent.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't really go to the West Coast that much. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, to me, I wouldn't have said.
You wouldn't
I'm
have said,
terrible.
okay.
Well, no, I'm terrible with accents. I do need my notes because, well, it's nicely leaning onto, well, your where you're from. You know, like you graduated from. I heard Anthony pronounce that correctly. Sorry if I don't. Summa cum laude. Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
from Tufts. Sorry about this.
No,
Maybe you
good.
can say it.
No, it's Latin, so I think it's like,
Okay.
yeah, summa cum laude. Yep.
Okay, you studied at Oxford as well, and then you worked at Wall Street, at a hedge fund, and then you pivoted into a non-profit. Well, with that pedigree, what made you at some point said F something, you know, the corporate ladder?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because I think I worked so hard to, you know, break into Wall Street and get, you know, certain jobs. But at the end of the day, it was very, not just, there was a lot of toxicity at the hedge fund, but, you know, as you can imagine, any hedge fund show, all the stereotypes are true.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I would say that...
You have a girl from Billions.
I wish. But I think it was more like I was forcing it in terms of like, I loved the networking aspect of it, but I very soon realized that I was like, I am not passionate about this industry. And it's one of those things where, you know, in school you can have a subject that maybe you're good at, but you don't like. And for me, I don't even think I was that good at it. I just studied a lot and did all the things I needed to do. But that's really what kind of ignited that switch into nonprofit and just, you know, take it back a little bit and, you know, not always have to be working and working is my life, all that. So I really started pursuing some acting and doing some acting classes, even just being, you know, a background character for some movies. That was just really good experience. And throughout that time, I think it took me about maybe 5 years to become SAG eligible, which was definitely a milestone where...
What's SAG?
So I guess this is very U.S. centric, but it's the Screen Actors Guild.
Okay.
So you might have seen like the SAG Awards and stuff.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So
yes.
that's just the union for actors and actresses and anyone in the film industry, really. So
Okay.
Any big name actor or no name actor is probably going to be SAG. Yeah.
Okay. Good. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. It's a fun fact. Yeah.
So I think your TikTok bio mentions this word. I think you define yourself as, I think I written it somewhere, multicultural comedy and mischief. Define mischief in Maëlie's word.
Yeah, so for me, I think it took me a while to get to that bio because I wanted something simple to encapsulate everything. But for me, I think mischief is really like seeing the humor and the playfulness and everything. I think especially when you're working with multiple cultures, multiple personalities sometimes. I definitely have a corporate versus artistic personality as well. And I think there are just a lot of comedic moments. I think some people might think, oh, that was like a really weird moment or a rude moment with some, you know, person. But for me, I just think it's interesting and comical. It's all, I take it
As it should be, yeah.
Yeah, as it should be. I don't really see anything wrong with, you know, how people interact. I'm like, we all just come from different backgrounds and we're used to different things. So for me, I think it's just trying to capture some of those moments. And, you know, it's really satisfying to also see when, you know, people comment and they're like, oh, this happened to me too. Or you know, especially with Americans and certain, we use a lot of French words to sound fancy, but I've discovered here that I'm like, wow, the French do not say things this way and it doesn't mean things this way.
Do you have an example?
I think one example was my mom was having a filet mignon at a work dinner, and she's like she's like, just English is enough for me. This is really hard to think about, filet mignon. What does that mean? She can't even pronounce it. But I'm like, Mom, in French class, I learned mignon is cute. So it's just like a cute little piece of steak.
Yeah, well, you could say that as well.
But I'm also like, we don't really eat.
But the waiters would not understand it.
Exactly. Like we have like entrecôte or like different types of meats here. I'm like, is this just an American thing and they're just using French words?
I struggle with that, knowing which piece of meat means what, like to translate entrecôte in English or like.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, they all taste good. That's all. That's all that matters, right? So
That's good. That's good, I suppose. Paris has this reputation of being the city of romance, the city of love, and very fashionable and sophisticated and all of those cliches. But so from your honest perspective, what percentage of this would you say is true? Or what percentage is Instagram?
I would say a surprising amount is true for me. Maybe I just have rose-colored glasses on still. Like, ask me in 10 years, maybe.
That's a good thing to my book.
But, because I even have a lot of friends in the U.S. who ask me, like, oh, how much of it is really Emily in Paris? Like,
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they're like, come on, we all know that's fake. And people get made fun of for, thinking France is like that. And I think maybe also I set very low expectations. I'm like, come on, this is a city, guys. It's every big city. It has its own share of problems and, crime, dirtiness, whatever it might be. But I feel like there are a surprising amount of moments where I'm like, is this real? Like, we're just, at the Louvre on a random day and there's this cool fashion week event, or, I had a collaboration with like a new cocktail bar near Opera Louvre area, and they named a drink after me, and I held some really cool events there. So there are a few moments where I'm like, wow, this is kind of more surreal than I expected.
Well, this is good then. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I'll get that. I'll take that as a win.
Oh, yes, exactly.
So you're a Chinese-American actor, then not comedian. So making comedy, though, about French and the French culture. Well, let's buy into the stereotypes. What's one of the French stereotypes that is actually true? And don't say smoking.
Yeah, I think there are a few stereotypes for sure, but I guess the bluntness. I think some Americans say it's rudeness if you're not really familiar with it. But I actually don't mind that, because as much as I love the American friendliness and bubbliness, I think sometimes it's hard to tell how much of it is real. And, even my mom has always warned me. She's like, be careful of nice coworkers. You never know what they're saying behind your back. And I'm like, oh, come on, Mom, you're so pessimistic. And then I think sometimes, things that have happened where there's betrayals or whatnot in corporate America, I'm like, oh, dang, my mom is right again. And you kind of have to watch your back a little bit. But I think in France, it's people are honest, much more honest to your face, and it might not be nice sometimes, but I do prefer it. I actually had a French boss while working in America, and she was one of the best managers I've had, just because she didn't sugarcoat everything. Not every meeting starts with, oh, you did this well, but she'll just start the meeting with like, why were you late the other day?
So you wouldn't, but that's nice, your choice of word. So you wouldn't call it rudeness, like many people would see like stereotype of Parisian being rude.
Yeah.
You'd call that bluntness rather, or directness.
Directness, yeah. I don't necessarily think that the French are trying to be mean. I just think it's a different cultural kind of way of speaking, and they're just blunt. And I think in the U.S. that would be rude because of what we're used to, and we're always so extra friendly, right? So when someone behaves like that, they're like, oh my God, this person is like really rude. They can't even hide it. But I think here they're not really hiding anything.
It's funny because in the corporate world, Americans would be seen as very direct from a French perspective, because you kind of get to the point, it's like business first and stuff like this. So it's funny that actually you also see us as being, in a way, direct. So okay.
Yeah. Well, I actually think in corporate, even so, they try to maybe say a few compliments or a few nice things before getting to something really harsh, or you're fired or something like that. Yeah.
Even from a French perspective, the Americans do look like indeed you sugarcoat a lot more.
Yeah,
indeed, that
yeah.
part is yes.
The sugar coating for sure.
That's for sure. You, well, because thanks to your history and background, you grew up with values of sustainability, conservation. Nothing goes to waste.
Exactly.
But now you're in Paris, you're in France, and well, I don't say we're wasting stuff, but this is this art de vivre and, being a bit hedonist. Well, do you think this is compatible, or what, did you have to adjust to that, or, what have been the impact for you?
Yeah, I guess maybe in my perspective, Americans always waste more.
Okay.
Yeah, so coming here, I was actually like, France does a lot of things that are just naturally better for the environment. Like we don't really have dishwashers in a lot of, in a lot of apartments or elevators, and there's not as much car usage where, especially if you're in the suburbs or, rural US, you have to drive all the time to get anywhere.
And seeing those pickup trucks in New York, first time I went there, I was like, how can they drive a truck that big in downtown, in the big city? Like you would never see a pickup truck in
You would
Paris.
never. No. But in the US, I think like SUVs are so common, big vans. And actually, I had a business trip in Croatia, and my Croatian counterparts were so excited when we were going to rent a car, because they were like, oh, can we please rent an SUV? And I was like, what's so special about an SUV? My mom has one, all the soccer moms have one, like it's nothing special. And for her, she's like, but our cars are so small. We've only seen SUVs in US TV shows and movies. So for them, it was like a very special experience. And to me, it was very normal.
Okay. Well, I must say, we do have this cliche about Americans that they're all driving SUVs.
Yeah, exactly.
Or pickups. Yeah.
Exactly.
So.
And I do think it's cool that now it's more trendy to be environmentally conscious and sustainable, because I grew up with it really based on economic necessity. So that's a little bit different. And I do remember, getting made fun of at school using reusable jars or, things that my parents would repack for me for lunch. But I think now that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
especially in big cities. I mean, in rural France,
maybe not
depends.
as much.
But also because, for example, I've realized my grandma basically doesn't have a trash bin. Because everything she does, there's no waste.
That's amazing. See,
and I think this is how the French used to do. I mean, obviously, it's harder in bigger cities because you don't have a garden and stuff.
Right.
But I think culturally, yes. I mean, like everyone was doing back then also.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it started from necessity sometimes, but, some things you just can't kick the habit, right?
Well, let's be a bit spicy here. Which country is better at make you feel like you belong?
Ooh, I think that's a really hard question, because I think immediately Americans make everyone feel like they belong, which is great. It's the hospitality and, the friendliness for sure. But I do have to say I've had, some situations and friendships and relationships that, weren't what I expected them to be. Whereas here in France, I have a lot of expat friends here from all over, some French friends as well. And I feel like, maybe it's a little bit harder to warm up to some people at first, but I guess, again, we'll see how long these friendships last. But I do think France is welcoming in its own way. And I definitely think the expat community, it's its own kind of circle, and they're very friendly.
But maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, because, well, obviously from my very biased French perspective, I like to think that we love basically anyone that's not French, because to us it's exotic. The French don't move near as much as other cultures, and so, well, at least used to. Maybe that's changed a bit, but would you say people at least are curious, about just because you're not French,
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, something I've noticed, because just, my French, I'm learning, and I'm hoping to get fluent one day, but just by speaking English, people can, kind of pinpoint you to a country, and I guess culturally as well. But, you know, having an American accent is actually kind of cool here, where people are like, oh, this is kind of cool. Whereas obviously that is not cool in the US. And even
it's not
acting.
unusual.
Exactly. And acting wise too, there's, you know, as you know, there's competition everywhere. And it's a bit hard to make myself stand out in the US because there are a lot of Chinese Americans, Asian Americans, of course. But in France, I feel like I've kind of found a little bit of a niche because I'm like, really, how many Chinese Americans are there in France? So
probably not that much.
Not as many, right? And so I've definitely felt that it's helped me in a way to kind of make myself a little bit more unique than I otherwise would be in America.
Okay, yeah. There's also something very French specific. Which is actually, I think, something we've imported from the US because maybe 10 years ago that didn't exist. This is the work-life balance. And France is infamous for its, apparently, for its work-life balance. But you come from the hustle culture, and especially with your background in finance and stuff. So would you say you've acclimated to that, you know, like turning off, you know, the switch sometimes, or is it still part of your DNA?
I try, I think, my best to get the best of both worlds because I think I've always been a hustler and, you know, when I'm passionate about something, I won't stop working. But I've definitely become more laid back since college and Wall Street times for sure. Even some of my London friends have seen me recently and they would just tell my new friends, like, Maëlie was so different back then, like, you know. But I would hope that I can maintain the best of both worlds and really enjoying life and making that the priority rather than working, because I do see the extremes of some of my friends and their partners where they have no time to enjoy life at all. And they make, you know, so much money that they can never really use. So to me, I'm like, let's try to balance it.
Yeah. So you go to the Apéros or?
For sure. I try my best if I can find some time in my calendar.
Oh, yes. So that's the French trying to get you into
exactly
pulling off the switch.
And I'm very grateful for that.
Okay, good. Well, actually, let's try to make some enemies, or not that many, but some. Because like, if you could fix one thing about the French culture by importing it from another culture, or US or Chinese or whatever, what would that be?
Ooh,
you could say we're perfect, but
no one's perfect for sure.
Well, I tried.
I think they're very like, maybe is flirty the right word? Like maybe that's like a stereotype, but I know not just myself, but a lot of my girlfriends who are, you know, searching for apartments and you have to deal with landlords. I've had, like, almost all of us have gotten hit on by landlords. And you know, they're always married and they have children. They talk to you about their wives and children. And then all of a sudden you're like, where did this shift come in? And, you know, so that can be a little shocking at first, because I don't think that would it doesn't happen as much in the U.S. for sure. There's like people are much more
part of the culture.
Yeah, and I know that's kind of a stereotype, but I think that'd be nice if you know it's not as much that.
Fair point. Okay, you know, Well, I suppose there's a reason we call that the city of love, or
exactly.
the French keys, the French lovers. Yeah, it's like they do try.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, also, Parisian expats or immigrants, apparently, they fall into two categories. Either there's those who assimilate and love it, and those who complain about it or don't, like, stay within a circle of expats or, again, immigrants. If you do complain, though, that probably mean you're a bit French. But let's keep that on the side. But which one would you say you are?
I think the first category for sure for now. But I also try I try to assimilate towards like the good parts, like the joy of life and, you know, really valuing life over work and, you know, working to live versus living to work. That part I do try to assimilate to the culture, but I'm very independent and I'm just naturally a friendly and bubbly person. So I don't think I would ever assimilate to, you know, kind of the more directness of the French culture. So again, maybe I still have those rose-colored glasses on a little bit. I'm still a bit new here, but hopefully, you know, I can maintain the best of both worlds.
For someone watching this that would want to move to France to pursue something creative, okay, maybe content creators, whatever.
Yeah.
Would you have a piece of advice to share with them?
Yeah, I would just say do it because, you know, I think Paris, especially France in general, just values art in a way that a lot of cultures do not, and it's not ingrained in us. Like growing up, you can't really learn art history. That's not really important. But I heard, at least from my French teacher, she said that's very important, and everyone goes to the museums as, you know, field trips, and I think you also have free admission as students. So that part I think is just amazing, and I think for me, there was always this pull towards Paris, and I'm so glad I did it. And there's just so much beauty, even in the architecture and everything, and on the streets even. I think there's a lot to be inspired by. And I don't think it's a coincidence that, you know, a lot of the great artists, you know, Picasso, Van Gogh, you know, even if you watch La La Land, the main character, she kind of makes her big break in Paris as an actress. But I don't think all of those things are coincidence. I definitely think there's something here that makes us a bit more artistic.
No, I think you're right. I mean, throughout my education, which was partly in Paris, Bordeaux, and even rural France, wherever I was, it was a big part of, you know, like the school is like pushing you towards like at least trying to understand and like arts. So yeah, I do think this.
Exactly.
It has legs.
It's a little different, right? Here, it's really amazing to meet so many like photographers that are 100% photographers or creative directors or someone in the industry where I stopped asking, oh, this is your full-time job? Because at first I was just so shocked. I was like, they must also have, you know, a corporate job.
Yeah, it's a side gig.
Exactly. And so I think it's very much inspiring me to maybe one day pursue it really full-time.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Well, Maëlie, thank you so much. You really have a unique perspective, even with the the pink glasses on. I love it. Yes, I'll borrow those glasses.
Yes,
but
course.
Before we wrap it all up, if people want to get in touch or follow you, where can I find you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube now. I've just started my YouTube presence, and actually I'm working.
What's your nick handle?
It's I'll have you spell it out. It's a little bit hard.
I'll put that in a comment.
Yes, yeah. down below. Because I'm also working on a feature film right now, and we are looking for, you know, background characters, maybe some other characters. So please reach out to me if anything is of interest.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Maëlie. That was perfect. Well, hopefully you liked it as well. So, thank you for everything, and thank you for watching.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.